Hello, everyone. As people are trickling in, we're going to wait 5 minutes to let everyone hop in and get settled. Everyone, we're having everyone trickle in. We'll start around 5:50 to have everyone just settled and just acclimate themselves to the screen as well. One more minute to have everyone kind of trickle in, and then we can begin the program.
Sarah Paulo, if you could take a look at Jawad's question in the chat. So you are on mute if you're talking to us.
I was just saying to myself that I see a few more people joined in, so doing a little mental math to just know that I'm excited for everyone. Hello, everyone. I guess that we have a few more people joining in. We have on our screen our itinerary, but first I'd like to welcome everyone. My name is Adol. I want to first thank you all for registering and joining us tonight and to officially welcome you to the community briefing on immigration. In my current role as the Immigrant and Refugee Affairs Coordinator at the Department of Neighborhood and Business Development, I am tasked with developing pathways for better support for new Americans, more specifically for those within the city of Syracuse, in concerns to the quality of life similar to tonight's conversation. I want to first and most importantly, send a heartfelt welcome to our Muslim viewers as they transition through breaking fast in observance of Ramadan. And I also want to extend a personal early happy Ash Wednesday to my fellow Catholic viewers as well as we also transition into the Lent season. I want to note that at the city, we hope that tonight's briefing provides the necessary clarity and calmness that we all need in this community and deserve currently. So without further ado, I will introduce tonight's MC and moderator, Michael Collins, the Commissioner of NBD. Without further ado, Michael.
Thank you, Adol. And thank you to everybody that's here. Really excited that we're up to 265 registrants for today. Not at all surprising to us with the way that Syracuse has always welcomed immigrants and refugees. We've got an excellent panel. I want to say thank you to the panelists. We've also got a tight panel, and so I know when I'm a panelist, I can sometimes get excited and keep going. So my job today is to help our friends stay on time. So forgive me, panelists, if I have to interrupt at one point and give you a little heads up that we're running short on time to finish your point. I'll try to be as efficient as possible with that. Incredibly important discussion. Mayor Walsh has said that, Syracuse, our vision is that Syracuse will be a growing city that embraces diversity and creates opportunity for all. We don't have exceptions to that. And we want to make sure that we're really clear on that. This is a really important discussion regarding making sure that everybody knows what's available to them here. We've taken a lot of questions through the registration process and through our community conversations that we've had. And so today's topics will focus on what we've heard from you. Microphones will be muted for everybody except for the panelists. And with that, I simply want to say thank you to everybody and introduce Mayor Walsh.
Michael, if I may, before the mayor speaks, we're getting some feedback that people are saying the volume is low. So if we can just, it sounds fine to me, but maybe it's just asking people just to check on their end. If they're on their phone, check their phone volume. If they're on their computer, there's mechanisms in the lower half of your computer screen that can help you turn the volume up on your end. But I hear you loud and clear, Michael.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, and I think our panelists are also a group of people that are not known for being quiet, which is why we've got them here. So hopefully we'll be good. Mayor Walsh, the floor is yours, sir.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. And thank you all for joining us here for a really important conversation. You heard Commissioner Collins talk about our city's vision to be a growing city that embraces diversity and creates opportunity for all. We are an incredibly diverse city, and we are proud of it. It is among our greatest strengths. For many years, on the front of City Hall, a sign hung that read, "Syracuse bids you welcome." This is who we are as a community. And when you look at the most recent census data, where the city of Syracuse population grew in the 2020 census for the first time in 70 years, it was largely because we are a welcoming community to refugees and immigrants and others. So we always have been, we always will be, but we understand that currently right now, given some changes in both the rhetoric coming out of the federal government as well as policies coming out of the federal government, that there are concerns about how that might impact us here in Syracuse. We're not here to necessarily, influence your opinion about immigration policy. We're here to share facts with you. As is the case with many issues coming out of Washington right now, there's a lot of speculation, there's a lot of consternation and debate. We want to focus on what we know and what we don't know, and to make sure that we are sharing that information with our constituents in a way that can empower all of you to make decisions based on in your own best self-interest and those of the community. So again, I want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank our panelists for sharing their subject matter expertise over the course of the next couple hours, and really just acknowledge that we're all here to share information. We're all part of the same community, and while there is still uncertainty and there are things that are unknown, we're here to share information with you and to provide a venue for people to raise questions and concerns. So as I mentioned, there have been some changes in federal policy, and we know that those are impacting people in very specific ways. It could be impacting your education, could be impacting your employment. And for many, again, based on changes, but also some just perceptions and concerns, people are legitimately concerned about their personal safety. And those that are here, that includes those that are here documented, as well as those that have been here that were born here. Again, this really isn't about any particular constituency. It's about everyone. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we're here to try to share information that we have available to us. I want to recognize one of our constituencies that you'll be hearing from shortly. Our resettlement agencies are undergoing great strain right now. We've seen significant employment loss as a result of some of the changes in the federal government. So certainly want to extend our thoughts to those that are being impacted directly in their employment, again, as well as those that are being impacted in their lives. Again, I want to thank our partners, many of whom are here, some of whom are not. And again, we'll hopefully provide other opportunities to engage in meaningful discussion. But the idea here is, again, to come together as a community, to work through these challenges, to share information, to be compassionate, to be collaborative, and to share a commitment to supporting each other through these uncertain times. I can assure you on behalf of government, we are in regular communication with all levels of government, certainly here in city government with our colleagues in the Common Council, some of whom you'll be hearing from later. I am in regular touch with the county executive and our county leaders on this, and the same with our state and federal leaders. Again, we may not all be fully aligned in terms of our views on certain policies, but we're all aligned in the fact that we want to make sure that people have information at their disposal and that we're all making informed decision, again, in the best interest of ourselves and our community. So with that, I am going to turn it back over again. Thank you all very much for being here, and I look forward to a very productive and informative discussion, and hopefully the first of many to come. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate you taking the time to participate in this and for your leadership here. And we want to welcome two more leaders of our community, elected leaders of our community, with Councilors Cholmajuk and Rita Paniagua, both councilors at large that have deep ties within a variety of immigrant communities. So, councilors, the floor is now yours.
Good evening, Commissioner Collins. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Walsh. Thank you, Adol, and thank you, everyone who was involved in making sure that this came to this point. I'm Councilor Majuk on behalf of myself and all Syracuse Common Councilors. I want to extend our appreciation to you all for raising your hand and answering the call of leadership and a call of advocacy. Thank you so much. Although we are in a very tough time at the moment, many of us who came from other countries and settled in Syracuse and call Syracuse a home feel that we have the support of the community, as it is a testament of tonight. Although our current federal administration is not showing that same sentiment locally, we do feel very good in how we are in this community and how the community is very supportive. Many of us that are immigrant came to this country seeking second chances in life, and to be met with what's happening right now with the federal government, it is very degrading, and it does not support the America that we all cross the ocean to be in it. And although we are dealing with what it is right now, we are still very hopeful that the America that we left our countries to be in, to have a second shot in life, still holds the promise that it has, and that it always had for generation. And my hope is that collectively we will move somewhere better than we were. And I want to appreciate all of you for working together and working with us to make sure that Syracuse continue to be a home that welcome New American and all the immigrants. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. This is Rita Paniagua, City Councilor at Large. Thank you for joining us for this important community briefing on immigration. We know, as the mayor said, that these are very uncertain times, and many are have questions and concerns about the road ahead. That's why we're here, to provide you with the right information from the right sources to help you make informed decisions. I urge you to listen carefully to our presenters today. They are here to guide us through this process with knowledge and clarity. Please remember to stay calm always, never lose hope, and avoid actions that could lead to difficult consequences. Help one another is very important. And when seeking information, turn to trusted experts, not social media or private chats where misinformation can spread. Together as a community, we can navigate these challenges with wisdom and strength. And thank you for being here. Buenas noches a todos. Gracias por acompañarnos en esta importante sesión informativa comunitaria sobre inmigración. Sabemos que estos son tiempos inciertos y que muchos de ustedes pueden tener preguntas o preocupaciones sobre el futuro. Por eso estamos aquí, para brindarles la información correcta de fuentes confiables para que puedan tomar decisiones informadas. Les pido que escuchen atentamente a nuestros presentadores hoy. Ellos están aquí para guiarnos en este proceso con conocimiento y claridad. Por favor, mantengan la calma y eviten acciones que puedan traer consecuencias difíciles. Apóyense mutuamente y cuando busquen información, acudan a expertos de confianza, no a las redes sociales ni chats privados donde la desinformación puede propagarse. Juntos como comunidad podemos enfrentar estos desafíos con sabiduría y fortaleza. Gracias por estar aquí. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Counselors, thank you both so much. Appreciate not just you being here, but you being everywhere when it comes to making sure that our immigrant constituents are being seen and heard. Thank you so much. Next up, we're starting off with Felicia Castricone, who's with Catholic Charities, longtime director of the Refugee Resettlement Program. Felicia, wonderful to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who has logged in tonight to learn more about this topic and get the latest information. I was asked to describe the local impact on refugee resettlement and refugees, but I want to start with giving you an overview of what's happened at the federal level and what's caused the local impacts. On January 24th, 2025, refugee resettlement in the United States was paused for 3 months, during which the federal government was supposed to review the U.S. resettlement program and make sure that it was secure and operating according to the highest standards. However, the suspension, the pause, included an order to cease all activities of resettlement immediately, meaning that we could not continue to serve refugees who had recently arrived, even those who arrived just days prior to the suspension. Nevertheless, Catholic Charities and other local resettlement programs chose to continue serving recently arrived refugees, citing our moral commitment to ensuring that they were welcomed, safe, and connected to services. However, on February 27th, 2025, the U.S. State Department canceled reception and placement contracts with the national agencies effective that day. This means that even if after the pause, refugees are able to travel to the United States, local resettlement agencies are no longer able to serve them. In fact, the local and national refugee resettlement program has been dismantled. Other funding for serving refugees comes from the Office of Refugee Resettlement, otherwise known as ORR. ORR funding has not been formally shut down or frozen yet. However, contracts that ran through the national resettlement agencies are not being reimbursed. So while we're providing services and the national resettlement agencies are invoicing ORR, none of those invoices are being paid. Consequently, Catholic Charities has stopped almost all activities through these programs, or where possible, transferred services to other funding sources. This includes services to Ukrainian and Afghan humanitarian parolees and intensive case management for the most vulnerable refugees. The future of ORR funding at this point is very uncertain. The impact on the agency has been substantial. In response to the funding freezes, Catholic Charities was forced to either lay off or furlough 51 staff persons in refugee resettlement services. This was almost 70% of our staff. The agency is maintaining its commitments to the more than 200 refugees who are just recently arrived and for whom core services have not been completed. And we're continuing services through other grants that are a pass-through through New York State or New York State funded, as long as that funding is considered obligated. We have not seen a slowdown in refugees coming to our offices to seek assistance. And we are also continuing to assist over 1,000 Ukrainians who are here on temporary protected status or humanitarian parole. Our office is assisting Ukrainians in applying for reparole or temporary protected status, but both of these statuses are actually very vulnerable to cancellation, which would force these individuals to return to Ukraine while the war is still ongoing. In addition, we continue to support former refugees who are already here, which includes helping them deal with the disappointment of canceled family members and canceled family reunifications. Catholic Charities had 90 individuals who were scheduled to arrive after January 24th through the month of February. This included many individuals who have relatives already in Syracuse, including a former refugee whose elderly parents were set to arrive, and a family whose 9-year-old has leukemia and has not been able to receive treatment overseas. If you can imagine waiting years for family reunification with close family members, only to have their flights canceled with little hope of actually ever being rescheduled, you can begin to understand the devastation that these executive orders have had on our refugees already here. And with that, thank you so much for listening, and I'll turn it back over to my colleagues.
Alicia, thank you. Really, really important for people to be aware of those facts. New York State has an office for new Americans, and locally we're fortunate to have Elizabeth Radel. That is our point of contact here. And Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. So I am the Immigrant Community Liaison for Central New York for the New York State Office for New Americans. And I have a little bit of good news. So all of our programs, because they're state funded, are not going to be impacted by many of the changes. We continue to remain in the state budget, and all of our programs will continue to be kind of overseen in upstate New York. A lot of them are, you're going to meet our grant partners here this evening. We have volunteer layer projects, so huge shout out to them along with Hiscock. They oversee our legal services. We also have English language learning that is overseen by a few different partners in Onondaga County. We also have programs for those with developmental disabilities and just any sort of disability service that you can think of, programs that help people understand what is a disability, how do I get services for those, and all the way through getting the help that they need. We also have citizenship and civic engagement. So if there's anybody here or that knows someone who is interested in becoming a citizen, we have programs through Catholic Charities. We have programs through Interfaith. Both of those will continue. We also have a robust program for workforce development. So I don't know if Zach and Mohammed are on from Interfaith. Many of you may know them. They run our Professional Pathways program, and we're very proud to have them. We also have a mental health support program, although I want to give a disclaimer that that hasn't quite reached upstate yet. It's still in a pilot program in downstate and capital region, but we do have really great partnerships with Office for Mental Health and different resources there. There's some great resources through the Trauma Informed Network on how to work with individuals or how to kind of understand the challenges of those who come over here as new Americans. And there's a few other places that I want to point out as well. The Office for Language Access through New York State is a really great resource for understanding what rights you have to receive services in a language that you understand, whether that's ASL or Somali or Swahili or Arabic or Chinese. Any of those over 200 languages are available to help serve new Americans and get the resources they need. We also have, that I'll put in the chat, a Know Your Rights webpage that's been organized by the Department of State, and that covers everything from resources through New York Immigration Coalition, which you'll hear about soon. It will also cover things like knowing your rights as an employee, as a worker, as a farm worker, getting health insurance, reporting any sort of discrimination, a whole slew of different things that you can access there. We also have a hotline. Our hotline is on our website, 1-800-566-7636. All calls are confidential and we can answer in over 200 languages. Another thing that I think is important to point out is that we only have 2 criteria for all of our services, and it's that you're in New York State. You don't have to have been here more than 5 minutes, just that you're in New York State and you're planning to kind of be a New Yorker, and that you were not born in the US. It doesn't matter to us where you came from, how long you've been here, how you arrived, where your family is. None of that is important to us. We just want to make sure that people are getting the critical services they need. And we're very happy and proud to be on. My contact is on here as well. I'm happy to put my email in the chat for anybody who would like to connect. A huge piece of what we believe right now is continuing this work, and however I can help represent the needs in our community to Albany, I'm more than happy to do so. Please connect with me. And thank you, Mike, for being our MC this evening.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and your availability and your work has been critical in supporting our community. Thank you so much. Next up, we've got a statement from law enforcement. We're having some technical difficulties in bringing on Jawad Rashid to be able to read that statement. So I will be able to do that momentarily. Here it is right here. So this is from the Syracuse Police Department. It is the mission of the Syracuse Police Department to prevent crime, enforce the laws, and understand the needs of the city of Syracuse community while providing professional service and ethical treatment for everyone. Today, the Syracuse Police Department has over 375 sworn members and employs more than 150 civilians, including a diverse population of approximately 143,000 people. The department does not enforce federal immigration laws. We collaborate with ICE when it comes to criminal investigations within the city of Syracuse limits. An example of our partnership was seen in the homicide case where a victim was found deceased in Lincoln Park in June of 2024. We're able to bring closure to this case with the critical support of ICE, who assisted in identifying and locating the primary suspect. This partnership allowed us to remove a dangerous individual from the Syracuse community and provide closure to the grieving family. So the Syracuse Police Department is committed to serving the needs of our diverse community, as illustrated by our mission statement. Through our recruitment efforts, we continue to employ more new American officers on a yearly basis, helping to bridge the gaps that may exist between our department and the communities that we serve. Additionally, the department also offers an interpretation hotline, delivering real-time translation services to assist individuals who may not speak English when they deal with officers on any call that we take. Our main focus remains on local crime prevention and public safety. So thank you to Syracuse Police Department for the statement, and apologies that Jawad, we ran into some technical difficulties with Jawad. Jawad was also going to read to us the statement from the Onondaga County Sheriff's Office, so I'll continue with this. The Onondaga County Sheriff's Office serves as the primary law enforcement agency for Onondaga County, New York. It holds jurisdiction over all county areas, providing essential services such as patrols, criminal investigations, and maintaining order. The office operates specialized units, including a boat patrol covering the county's waterways, ensuring safety and enforcing laws on lakes, rivers, and other aquatic areas. The OCSO also oversees 2 jails, managing the detention of individuals in both Onondaga County Justice Center and the Jamesville Correctional Facility. In addition, the Sheriff's Office handles felony investigations, collaborating with other agencies to investigate and solve serious crimes within the county. Deputies are involved in proactive patrolling, responding to emergencies, conducting traffic stops, and providing community policing. This comprehensive approach ensures public safety and law enforcement across diverse areas of responsibility. The Onondaga County Sheriff's Office has no specific policy or memorandum of understanding with ICE. The sheriff has worked with our federal law enforcement partners for years regarding criminal investigations, such as with the FBI on a bank robbery or human trafficking, and with the U.S. Marshal's Office to locate federal fugitives. The sheriff's office interactions with the immigrant population almost always result from a criminal investigation or traffic violations. Any interaction with an undocumented immigrant would align with the guidance of the Attorney General, Letitia James, and her predecessors, which is how the Sheriff's Office has always done business. Any arrest or detainment of an undocumented immigrant would be based on a detainer or an administrative warrant signed by a judge. Any sharing of information would also be aligned with the AG's guidance. The Onondaga County Sheriff's Office is committed to ensuring that all individuals, including new Americans and undocumented individuals. Oh, Jawad, you're here. Jawad, I'll finish this statement, and I believe we've got one more for you after this, if I recall. With language barriers are treated with respect and dignity. OCSO employs a diverse group of deputies who can connect with individuals from various cultural backgrounds, helping to bridge language and cultural gaps. Additionally, the Sheriff's Office provides access to an interpretation hotline, offering real-time translation services to assist individuals who may not speak English. This service ensures that everyone can communicate effectively and have their voices heard, whether in routine encounters or more serious situations. OCSO strives to build trust and foster positive relationships with all members of the community, recognizing the importance of clear communication and cultural sensitivity. By providing these resources, the Sheriff's Office supports a safer, more inclusive environment for everyone in Onondaga County. I believe we also have a statement from the county executive regarding probation, forgive me. And so Jawad, if you do have control of your microphone, I'd be happy to turn it over to you for this. And you don't. Okay, no problem. I've got it. And my apologies for the challenges there. Onondaga County Probation Department. The Onondaga County Probation Department provides public safety through supervision, treatment, and prevention. Probation officers are peace officers with dual responsibilities of protection of the community and rehabilitation of the offender. The ultimate goal is long-term public safety and the reduction of further victimization. A statement provided by the Office of the County Executive states, as is always the case when asked, our probation department is compelled to work with federal law enforcement. And those are 3 law enforcement statements. So with that, I will turn it over to representing the legal community. We've got, I believe, 3 people. I know we've got Sal Curran, Sarah McDowell, and Greg Dewan representing volunteer lawyers and Hiscox Legal Aid.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you to all the community partners here. My name is Sal Curran. I'm the Executive Director of Volunteer Lawyers Project, and I'm here with our partners, Hiscox Legal Aid Society, but we're going to go first. So just very briefly, Volunteer Lawyers Project of Central New York, if you're not familiar with us, we are a provider of free legal services throughout Central New York, and we're based here in Syracuse, so a lot of our work is done right here. We, of course, do immigration law, but in addition to that, we do LGBT rights, eviction defense, family law, including custody and guardianship, debt, elder law, and wills. And because our immigration work is largely funded by the New York State Office for New Americans, most of our immigration work right now is continuing as it has been for a number of years, which is really wonderful, and we're so grateful for that. I will say that most of the work we have done for Afghan arrivals after the collapse of the government in Afghanistan has been passed through funding from the ORR, as Felicia had mentioned. So we are very concerned about the stopping of funding there. To date, we've served over 360 individuals and families through that funding, and have gotten well over 50 families asylum, so they're able to be here in the long run, among other outcomes. So, but like Felicia, we're working hard to fold those individuals into other sources of funding and looking hard at trying to find other ways to fill the gaps. So I'm going to pass it over to Sarah, who's our Deputy Executive Director and the Director of our Immigration Program. So take it away, Sarah, to talk a little bit more about what our services there are like. I will also just say briefly that we will talk more about specific immigration questions in the question and answer section, because a lot of the questions and answers fall under that category. So Sarah, take it away.
Thanks so much, Sal. And thank you to the City of Syracuse for having us tonight and for all of you joining to talk about these important issues. The Volunteer Lawyers Project of Central New York's immigration programs cover a variety of types of cases and work. So we have our Office for New Americans Pro Bono program, which we partner with the Erie County Bar Association Volunteer Lawyers Project in Buffalo, Just Cause in Rochester, and the Legal Project in Albany to provide and pro bono representation to immigrants throughout upstate New York. And so through that grant, we train and recruit pro bono volunteer attorneys, pro bono volunteer non-legal attorneys, law students, translators, and we do direct case representation through that grant and through utilizing and training volunteers. We also have ONA Legal Counsel projects, which are funded by the New American grant through the Office of New Americans, and that is pass-through funding from the Hiscox Legal Aid Society, who you're going to hear from next. And through those grants, we provide direct legal representation in Central New York and in the North Country. So in Central New York, we cover the counties of Onondaga, Cayuga, Cortland, Oswego, and Madison County under that grant. And in the North Country, we cover Clinton, Essex, Hamilton, Franklin, St. Lawrence, Jefferson, and Lewis counties. We do presentations. We do Know Your Rights presentations and community presentations, as well as legal trainings, and we do legal screenings. We also have a naturalization project that focuses specifically on helping folks in Onondaga County get naturalized. And we do Afghan legal services, as Sal mentioned, but that funding is federal and is at risk at this point. We
also have been working hard to pivot and respond to all of our clients and put them in the best place possible given the changes in circumstances at the federal government. We've been working hard to do TPS clinics with our community partners and with pro bono volunteers so that as many people as who need to file for temporary protected status before certain deadlines can get those applications in. And we have also been working to do family planning clinics, and I'll pass that back to Sal, who's been spearheading those clinics.
Yeah, very quickly, because this could be an hour and a half, 2-hour training just on family planning. I just dropped in a link. And what this is to help people draft documents like standby guardianship designation and designation of person and parental responsibility or parental relationship. And what this does is if it gets picked up by ICE, it makes it so that someone else can take care of their kids. So if you are an immigrant, please take a look at that page. We've tried to make it as simple as possible. We have sort of a fillable form. And if you have any complicating factors like that one of the parents doesn't live in the US or something like that, please reach out to us. We really want to make sure that our community is as safe as possible and that our children are taken care of. So with that, I'll hand it over to Greg.
Thanks, Al. Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Dewan. I'm the Executive Director of the Hiscock Legal Aid Society in downtown Syracuse. We have a variety of programs and practice areas you'll see listed on this slide, including immigration, tenants' rights and eviction defense, foreclosure prevention, divorce and family law, domestic violence, unemployment insurance, criminal appeals, and parole revocation defense. But for the next couple minutes, I'll focus on our immigration program, as that is the main topic of today's presentation. We serve 18 counties with our immigration program, thanks largely to funding from the New York State Office for New Americans. So that covers the Central New York region, the North Country region, and the Mohawk Valley regions. As you can imagine, we've seen a massive increase in the number of calls for immigration legal assistance in recent weeks, with Central New York being the main source of most of those calls, largely in part to Syracuse's history of welcoming refugees and immigrants. There's a large community here who is scared and nervous and seeking guidance from our office and our partners like Volunteer Lawyers Project. I would encourage anybody who needs immigration legal assistance to reach out to us. Our website's on the slide, as is our main phone number. We can do an intake. You can get referred to our intake guide, our intake law assistant, to see if it's something we're able to assist with. We strive to provide at least a consultation to anybody who calls who meets the funding criteria and is not a conflict of interest. It's a very uncertain time. Laws are changing, and situations are very fact specific, so it's important if you have a question to reach out to legal counsel, and we'll do our best to advise you and represent you if we're able to do so. Thank you all for having me, and I'm happy to stick around for the question and answer session at the end. Thank you.
Sal, Sarah, and Greg, thank you so much. Appreciate this and all the work that you do to support our community with legal services. Next topic is education. So we're going to hear from Lita Raganese and Laura Kelly, and appreciate you being here and sharing your knowledge.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lita Raganese, Supervising Director of our ENL, English is the New Language, World Languages and Bilingual Program. I have shared a few slides with the team here, and I'm going to hand this over to Laura Kelly to describe this piece.
Good evening. Thank you all for having us here. I did want to echo the sentiment that it's an uncertain time, and some of our families are nervous, and some of our staff are nervous. And so we've consulted with our attorneys a lot over the past few weeks about this issue and others. And we wanted to make sure that we shared some consistent information with all of our staff who would know what to, so that everyone knows what to do to make sure that we're protecting our kids as best as possible. So this information was shared with all of our staff shortly after the initial executive orders were issued. And essentially what we want to make sure that all schools know is that if they need support or assistance, to call the superintendent's office. If there is an official presenting a warrant, that we get that to our attorney so that we can get legal advice about how to proceed. We can't do everything as a school district, and we are partnering a lot with community-based organizations to try to make sure we're getting information to our students and families so that they can make really informed decisions about what's best for them. And I'm going to turn things over to Director Agonise so she can tell you about some of those partnerships.
On this slide, we have in our district, district and school impact teams that are heavily supporting our schools, and our Office of Student Support Services and Office of Family Engagement. There are representation at every building to support all of our students, but specifically our new Americans. Specifically out of my office, I work closely with the Office of New Americans for their resources, refugee resettlement agencies, and also will be a part of the New Americans Forum. So being a part of community organizations and really collaborating with them is of the utmost importance in our office. On our next slide, I'd like to share with the community in my department all of the supports that we have in place. So on the right-hand side is all of the instructional pieces, our ENL teachers, over 100 teachers to support our students, our bilingual nationality workers, our language assessors who are supporting the initial intake and making sure that they're placed in appropriate programs in our schools, our instructional coaches that are supporting the teachers and the families and the students. And then through multiple grants from the state, on the left-hand side, we have our health specialists, our nurse, just for this population of students. And that is her full-time job. We have our home and school relations specialist, and her purpose is to make sure there's that connection between home and school. Our refugee academic coaches, they are the ones fully supporting our new families and alongside with all of the other staff, and our student academic advisor, the school counselor, ensuring that they are scheduled correctly in the right courses, and making sure that they're supported fully at whatever grade level they're in. So that's what we have put in place in our district to make sure that we can support fully the child, the family, the best that we can. And like Laura has said, we have worked closely with our Office of New Americans and Refugee Resettlement Agencies to make sure that there is always that communication there. We meet bi-monthly so that we will be able to discuss current and short, long-term plans for our new Americans. Thank you.
Rita and Laura, thank you so much. We know the stress on the families that can be huge and how that plays out with the children. So this is great. So I want to note that we've had some great questions come up in the chat. Our plan for this evening, because we know we've got far more questions than we'll fully be able to answer. Hopefully, questions that come up in the chat, you may hear your answer, an answer to your question as we continue through. We're going to take down all the questions as well as the ones that we don't necessarily get to through our FAQ at the end. And for those questions that we can provide factual, concrete answers to, we will do our absolute best to do so. And we're going to send that out as a follow-up to this. So can't promise that we're going to get to every single question that comes in, but we will do our best to get you as much information as possible. So next, we're talking about with the Worker Center of CNY. So Jessica Maxwell, you're up. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. What a privilege to be here in this space with everybody. The Worker Center of Central New York is a labor rights organization, and the vast majority of our members and the workers we serve are Latino immigrants who are here working in agriculture, construction, service industries, among other essential sectors. For us, it's really important to recognize that the roots of our current immigration context did not begin with the inauguration of the current president, although we recognize a lot has shifted. but that is really the result of a decades-long bipartisan failure to update our immigration policy in any meaningful way, which has left, unfortunately, millions of our immigrants in this country dependent on a patchwork of ever-changing temporary programs and statuses that's very complicated to navigate, and additionally left hundreds of millions of families and workers with no meaningful pathways forward to legal status. Because we have deep roots in a community that's been struggling and organizing for so long around these issues, we have been able to quickly adapt and mobilize with allies across the state and country to respond to this current situation. And as we're seeing, literally with the stroke of a pen, through no fault of their own, some people's statuses may be shifting and in jeopardy. And so while we have organizations that are fighting in the courts and others working at the legislative level to challenge some of these policies or enact protections, we do want to help folks ground ourselves in an understanding of basic rights and fundamental freedoms that we have in order to organize and protect our communities. So we want to talk a little bit about Know Your Rights. We're collaborating really closely with the New York Immigration Coalition and our volunteers through the Syracuse Immigrant and Refugee Defense Network to provide access to key resources. The New York Immigration Coalition has developed a Know Your Rights presentation on the immigration system and rights that all of us have within it, as well as resources for locating and supporting loved ones if they are detained, as well as a companion facilitator guide. These resources are available on their website in over a dozen languages, including Urdu, Karen, Spanish, Haitian Creole, Swahili, among others. There are also Know Your Right cards that are available on the website to download and print. These cards are designed both to inform immigrants of your basic rights, but also so that if you are unable to communicate to immigration agents, you can invoke your rights by showing the card, which has the rights on one side in English and on the other side is translated into the language of the community member. There's an incredible diversity within our immigrant communities. We're mostly grounded in the Latino immigrant community, but it's critical not to see these resources as static and one size fits all. They're a tool in our toolbox, and we encourage communities to adapt these resources to your needs, to be creative in how you're using them, whether you're doing home visits, making TikTok videos, designing QR codes, or in school assemblies. We need to be flexible right now as things shift. We're actively providing Know Your Rights trainings in collaboration with the NYIC and CIRDN, and all of our staff are bilingual in English and Spanish, and we're very comfortable working with simultaneous and consecutive interpretation with other interpreters. I want to highlight a couple of the key rights that we are finding that we're hearing about a lot. The issue of warrants, judicial warrants, administrative warrants. We've already had questions in the chat. Under the Constitution, every individual in the US, regardless of immigration status, does have the right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. So law enforcement, including immigration agents, cannot legally enter private spaces like homes or certain areas of businesses, for example, or search your car or your person without permission or a judicial warrant, which is obtained by providing evidence to a court to justify this need, unless there's some kind of clear emergency. So if law enforcement knocks on your door, you should ask them to identify themselves and show their badges. If immigration enforcement shows up to your house or private business or other non-public space, we recommend not opening the door and asking if they do have a judicial warrant. In most cases, ICE does not obtain a judicial warrant. They have an internal administrative document that they refer to as a warrant. They may say that it's a warrant, and it's important to be able to recognize the difference. You can ask them to show it through a peephole, slip it under a door, put it up to a window, take a photo of it, send it to a trusted advocate who can help you understand what you're dealing with. We recommend that in the case with schools or places of businesses to always request to see any warrant that ICE says they have and to check to ensure that it is a judicial warrant signed by a judge or a magistrate, issued by a court, and not an internal immigration document, that it has a current date and has correct details matching the location they're seeking to enter. Otherwise, you are fully within your legal rights to deny access to any private space. You also have the right to remain silent, even if you're in a public space. You have the right to request to speak to a lawyer before answering any questions or especially before signing anything. We understand everyone's situation is different, but we do encourage everyone who feels comfortable to invoke your right to remain silent. I know we had an incident in the previous administration, under the previous Trump administration, where we had a big Border Patrol presence at our local regional transportation center, where they would often walk down the line of passengers and ask everybody if they were a US citizen. And we had an active presence informing people of their rights and had a volunteer who caught on video ICE asking her if she was a US citizen, and she very clearly and loudly stated, "I do not have to answer that question." Doing so makes it easier for anybody else who may be feeling very uncomfortable and unsure about how to answer it, helps them feel safe, also invoking their right to not answer that question. You can find, I know there's a lot of questions on this stuff. There are specific guides for employers, for schools, and for higher educational institutions at the National Immigration Law Center website, which is www.nilc.com under the resources section. There are amazing short animated videos on your rights, interacting with immigration agents at wehaverights.us. Videos are in multiple languages and cover a variety of scenarios. There's also a lot of community mobilization going on. There are regional rapid response networks set up to document ICE activities in our communities. You can find guides on setting up such networks at the Catholic Legal Immigration Network website, which is cliniclegal.org. And we do recommend, if you are in an impacted community, that you work to establish independent communication networks on the platforms that work best for your community, that you're most familiar with, adding trusted community members and organizing yourselves to share information, coordinate mutual support, and identify needs. Communication networks at the neighborhood or town and city levels have been really a crucial tool for sharing information and in organizing so far. In terms of supporting detention and deportation defense strategies to mitigate possible consequences for families, we encourage folks to carry a US ID on them if you have one, such as a driver's license, not to carry your home country identification. We've seen some aggressive tactics around expedited removals. And in those situations, we do also recommend, if you think you might be vulnerable, keeping documents on you that show that you have been in the US for at least 2 years. And we are assisting people in filling out a simple form from the New York Legal Assistance Group that you can carry with you that indicates the specific reasons under immigration law for which you are not subject to expedited removal. The other primary way you can protect yourself, and Sal alluded to this, I'm sure we'll talk more about it, is by talking to and working with your loved ones and trusted advocates to make emergency plans, and especially emergency family plans if you have young children. And I think it's important that we recognize as we do this work, this is incredibly traumatizing and re-traumatizing for our communities that have already experienced devastating upheavals and separations, in many cases, to even have to engage in these conversations. So we recognize this process requires not just information, but also emotional support and care. And in addition to VLP, whose resources are excellent, and New York State based, which is really important for guardianship paperwork because that does change state by state, but there is an excellent resource at the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, www.ilrc.org, and I'll put all these links in the chat, that has immigrant preparedness guides and family preparedness guides that can help you think through the kinds of scenarios you might need to prepare for, and documents that you should gather now to be ready in case of an unexpected interaction. Thank you so much. We'll be happy to contribute more in the FAQ.
Thank you so much, Jessica. We impressively are reasonably on track with time, considering the fact that every person that you've heard from is somebody that could talk to you about this for a week with their expertise. Really appreciate how difficult it is to slim it all down to the few minutes that we've had to be able to fit everybody in. This is a chance for everybody to go take a break for a few minutes, get a water, head to the bathroom. We will be back in 10 minutes. So see you at 5 of. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. So we will be going into our FAQ section. Just a reminder of the fact that when this is done, since this is being recorded, we will have we're going to create a new page on the city website at syr.gov, where this will be posted as well as the questions that we're able to provide solid answers to. We're going to email that out to everybody that registered. So you'll get notice of when that's up and be able to share that link with anybody else that is looking for that information. So that'll be up shortly after this event. Right now, we've got several questions that we're trying to get through that came up. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to get through all of them. There's just been really thoughtful questions that have come up through our discussions as we've prepared for this event. So we're gonna stick to the ones that we think came through most often and really seem to be the most important, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. We've got 4 different general areas in which policy areas in which these questions come from. So we're looking at general policy and action, the deferred action for childhood arrivals or DACA, temporary protective status, and ICE enforcement. So we're going to try to get to 1 or 2 questions in each of those areas. I also want to make sure that people are able to take a look at the chat. We've had several of our guests and our panelists provide links to resources within the chat. So feel free to take a look there. So the first question here for our panelists is, what does it mean to be a welcoming city? What policies, programming, or procedures have been enacted? And I know we've got some deputy mayor and some of our councilors that may be on that might want to answer that one. So not to put anybody on the spot, but if one of our panelists wants to chime in, please do.
Michael, I'll start.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Welcoming city for us means, particularly in this conversation here, bringing the absolutely fantastic adult on board, really to provide laser focused service provision and coordination of services for our new American and refugee communities here in Syracuse. And being a welcoming community means absolutely that we are around what was explained previously around the statement that was read from Syracuse Police Department and the policy that we have with the police department around immigration and working with or not federal law enforcement entities. The answer I was waiting for this moment, but it was addressed, is that, again, as stated in the policy, unless it's a criminal activity, the policy does not allow for the sharing of information or to act in a position of a federal ICE agent or law enforcement agent as a Syracuse City police officer. And the warrant answer is it must be a judicial warrant. We still live in the United States of America. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next question, what steps should I take now to secure my status or prepare for possible changes? And I'm hoping that some of our lawyer friends on here might be able to address this one.
Hi, I'm happy to take that question. I think it's really important to know your status and have all of your documents and your paperwork in order as best you can. So if you aren't sure exactly what has happened on some of your immigration cases, you might want to schedule a consultation with an attorney. You could do something with the attorney called requesting a copy of your file through a Freedom of Information Act request, if that's appropriate. Being sure you have a copy of your employment authorization document, a copy of any approvals of, your green card application, your approvals of an asylum case. Have copies of those in safe places. And just to be sure that you have all your paperwork in order, and if there's something you're eligible to file, talk to an attorney about whether that, you should get the ball rolling on that.
Thank you, Sarah. So next question, I think Jessica from Worker Center, if you're still on, this might be up your alley. What happens to other family members if a child or parent is detained?
It's a hard question to answer because it's very dependent on the situation, on the statuses of the family members involved, on the ages involved. And this is why it's so important to think now about what is your circumstance, and to think about, unfortunately, in a worst case scenario, what would you like to see happen? And so I think one of the things that's most concerning to us is if there is a situation where there is only one parent, or where neither parent is either a citizen or a permanent legal resident and could be vulnerable even to a short-term detention while status gets sorted out, that it could leave children potentially exposed to being taken into foster care or putting into child protective services, and then having a long path to reuniting that family. And that's something we really want to avoid. We really don't want to see. And so we are focused on assisting families in thinking through these situations and really filling out either standby guardianship paperwork or a designation of parental authority. So there is a backup plan that allows those children to be with a trusted loved one who will see to their best needs. And we have had multiple instances, unfortunately, already right here in Syracuse and Central New York, of children, including US citizen children, left without parents. And we have been really appreciative of Volunteer Lawyers Project and the resources they've provided to help us support families to keep those children with people who love and know how to take care of them.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Yeah,
yes,
Michael,
and Sal, while you're adding to it, I think that because of a similar question that I think that you can perhaps weave into your answer here is, are there any proposed changes to DACA?
Okay. I can't answer the DACA question. I'll have to hand that one off to Sarah. But I just wanted to follow up with what Jessica said, which is certainly at the very least, we want people to do designation of standby guardianship, which gives somebody immediate guardianship upon a parent getting picked up by ICE for 60 days. This is not a bad document for every parent to do, because it also works if somebody becomes physically or mentally incapacitated. It actually was originally created for folks like that were terminally ill with cancer or things like that. But it was amended, the New York law was amended during Trump 1 to include those who are detained. But I do just want to point out there's other documents. There's a lot of documents that we think about, and we have a full list on our website. And also Jess mentioned some of these other national sites that list them. You're going to want to think about power of attorneys. You're going to want to think about travel authorization, because if both parents are picked up and removed, or there's only one parent here and they're picked up, removed, and sent to their home country, kiddos can't travel by themselves without permission from their parents, and can't travel internationally without authorization from the parent to travel with somebody. So there's a lot of things you want to think about. Make sure you look at some of these resources. And again, I'll link to our website in a moment. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Sarah to talk about DACA.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sal. In regards to DACA, DACA has been wrapped up in a Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals case, the Texas versus the United States, and a decision came out on that court case on January 17th, 2025. And so the current status of DACA is that everyone who does currently have DACA is able to keep renewing their status. They're able to keep renewing their employment authorization. They can apply for advanced parole if it's appropriate for their situation. And we're waiting to sort of see what comes next for the future of DACA and new applications moving forward, depending on on the Trump administration's position. There have not been any announcements in the new Trump administration specific to DACA.
Thanks to all three of you. Really appreciate that. And it's that's a really stressful topic to have to consider. Absolutely. Temporary protective status. Thinking we stick with lawyers, but also possibly some of our resettlement agencies that are represented here. What is the latest information regarding temporary protective status? And what are the impacts at the local level of any proposed changes or restrictions? All right, we've got a tough one. I'll go for it, Sarah.
I'm happy to start, and then our refugee resettlement partners can chime in as they'd like. So currently, there are 16 countries who have TPS designations. And for those of you who don't know much about TPS, TPS stands for Temporary Protected Status. And that was an immigration status that was created by Congress in 1990. And it's used by the executive branch when a country is going through warfare or a natural disaster, and individuals who are here from that country need to be able to stay and not face deportation and be able to work while they can't return to their home country. And it really is sort of executive branch dependent on which countries are designated for the TPS statuses. And they're typically designated for 12 or 18 months at a time and can be changed based on country conditions or based on politics, as we know. So far, since the Trump administration came to power in January, only 2 major TPS changes have been made, and that is for Haiti and Venezuela. So if you go to the USCIS website, www.uscis.gov, you can pull up the temporary protected status pages for each of those 16 countries. And on each page, you can see who's eligible, when they had to be in the United States to be eligible for TPS, when they have to apply or renew by, and when the status expires. And so the Department of Homeland Security, the secretary, has until 60 days before the designation expires to opt whether to redesignate and renew the option for TPS or not. And so for Venezuela, on February 2nd, the Trump administration revoked the Biden administration's announcement. And so now the 2023 designation will end in April of 2025. And the 2021 designation will currently end in September of 2025, unless the presidential administration takes action to redesignate it. And TPS for Haiti will now end on August 3rd of 2025, unless a separate extension is announced.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm going to move on to ICE enforcement. So we've talked about
Michael, before we move on to ICE enforcement, can I just say that I just want to just quickly say, for those who are interested in renewing their TPS status, if you are currently working with Interfaith Works or Catholic Charities or RISE, please work with your case managers to connect with Volunteer Lawyers Project and Hiscox Legal Aid Society. I know Volunteer Lawyers Project is really working hard to set up clinics where we can move people through quickly for renewals. We've been pushing out applications for ones that still allow initial applications. And while the ORR funding, which we have had under Interfaith Works and Catholic Charities and Office for New Americans, while some of those are under question, we're still really pushing out these applications. For now, this is still a good status. And so people should reach out if they think they might be eligible for that.
Timing is huge. Anything that you think you might be eligible for needs to be prioritized, without a doubt. Thanks for that, Sal. So we've talked a little bit about engaging with ICE. Any other? So I feel like we've answered some of this question, But anything else from this group on rights when engaging with ICE? We talked about public setting, but also the private setting. I know Jessica covered a lot of this really comprehensively beforehand. Okay, so
Yeah,
if anything
Mike,
else,
just
Yeah.
real quick, if I could, hi, everybody, Tom Drum, I'm with the New York State Attorney General's office. Speaking specifically with warrants, I know there's certainly a lot of conversation and confusion around the differences between administrative warrants and judicial warrants. I dropped a link to our main site with the Attorney General. If you go onto our under our immigration rights section of our website, we do have a briefing being able for the general public to digest the differences between both administrative and judicial warrants, showing copies of what an administrative looks like and what a judicial warrant looks like and the differences between those two. I think our panel's done a really good job of explaining those differences, but if people like a visual on kind of what those different types of warrants look like, we would certainly steer you to the Office of the Attorney General's website link in the chat. So just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
And Tom, I appreciate that. So for people that are following in the chat, we've had so many resources. If you go back to 655, you'll see Thomas Drum in that link that he provided right there. So excellent resource. And again, we'll have all of these when we post this on the city's website when we tie it all together at the end. Jessica,
if I could
do you have something to
chime
add?
in. Yeah, and I see there was a question in the chat as well, which is an important one of how do you identify an ICE agent? And this is one of the issues we have that causes confusion and tension in the community with law enforcement as well, in that ICE may sometimes show up in vests that just say police. Sometimes they're identified as ICE. We've seen a lot of also undercover activity where they're not readily identifiable. So it is important to ask people to identify themselves. They should, they don't always. And that is why we're advising particularly folks who are immigrants who may be vulnerable to be very cautious and to not be opening the door unless there's verifiable identification and a legitimate interest or a judicial warrant that's there. And I think the other key point I want to make is it is not easy. It can be incredibly intimidating, and people come from a variety of cultures and different ways of engaging with law enforcement and different levels of trust. This is something we've struggled with a lot in the Syracuse community and in other communities. I think it's really important that we're not just telling people their rights. These are things we need to practice. These are things we need to role play and we need to engage around so that we can really feel comfortable and confident in how we're going to respond to these scenarios. It's not the kind of thing you read about and then you just do. These are hard things to learn and to stand up for.
Jessica, that's great stuff. I appreciate it. So I will tell you, so many of our questions that have come up, our presenters have managed to answer throughout what they provided in their statements to us earlier. So I'm skipping through some of these right here simply because we've covered them in detail, which I really appreciate. Are there, and this would be again to anybody on the panel that is comfortable speaking to it, but are there any changes in policies that we have not yet discussed related to undocumented immigrants?
Michael, I just want to just make sure, Jim, I've seen similar posts about Syracuse University. I do not have that information. I don't believe we have it, but we will follow up.
Thank you, Deputy
So
Mayor.
the one thing I'll speak to, Michael, is what was just mentioned, this recent directive, the alien registration, which is this new federal directive reinterpreting law that already exists in the INA, in the Immigration Naturalization Act. So that's new, but we don't have any guidance on it yet. Like, it just came out, and like many of these federal guidances, we're waiting for our federal partners to tell us what we should be advising people on how to handle that particular guidance. So that's a relevant one. Sarah, is there any other things you would want to mention? I saw there was a question regarding CBP1. It's my understanding that's been totally shut down at this point. I think at this point, just a lot of the ways that we had for, like a lot of the ways that we understood immigration law to work over the past 4 years no longer apply, and it just sort of changes daily. What would you add to that, Sarah?
I think it's important to really follow reputable news and policy sources because as quickly as policies are announced or proposed, litigation is also happening and injunctions, and those announced policies are stopped or, on halt for some time. So it's really a lot of the policies are in flux. So it's really important to kind of stay on top of reputable news sources and information about the policies that might impact your life and your work and your family and friends.
And Jess shared a lot of the places we would suggest for looking into that.
Yeah, and then Ruthie's got one more for you. Is there a resource for employers trying to navigate sponsorship and employee rights?
We don't do employment immigration law, so I will defer to other folks on the call.
I know
I'm not going to go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in terms of navigating employee rights, we would really recommend on the NILC, the National Immigration Law Center website, in conjunction with NELP, the National Employment Law Project. They have put together a guide for employers related to ICE enforcement and immigration enforcement. That's an excellent resource that employers can look to for guidance on what they should be doing to prepare themselves to protect their employees' rights.
Yeah, I'll defer to Jessica on that. I think she hit the nail on the head. I don't have much to add to that.
So we've worked through the questions that we were prepared to ask. Again, we're going to follow up with everything that is come up in the chat because frankly, many of the questions in the chat have led to resources being shared in the chat. This is one of the most resource heavy chats I've been in a really long time, which to me just demonstrates the skill and the depth and the knowledge of who we've managed to pull together here. So thank you so much from me. I'm turning it over to Deputy Mayor now so that she can wrap us up. But on behalf of the team, thanks so much.
Sorry,
Deputy Mayor, the floor is yours. Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Please.
This is Mabel from the New York Civil Liberties Union. I'm from the
Hi,
Education
Mabel.
Policy Center. I just wanted to reiterate the school policies, the school protocol with ICE interactions, and say that what the school district, the Syracuse City Public School District rep just shared is the policy that we recommend, which is that to train frontline staff to elevate the ICE request to the principal or the school district attorney before letting in any ICE agents, and to, again, recognize when it's a judicial warrant or an administrative warrant. But that is the policy that we recommend, and that's the policy that the state attorney general also shared. And what we've seen helped and reassures the student population as well as families is when individual schools reaffirm that policy and reaffirm that the school is a safe place and that students, regardless of immigration status, are safe in schools. So sharing that out, that reaffirming statement or resolution to families and students is always helpful, and clarifying that position is helpful and comforting. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Mabel, thank you so much.
There are
Mayor?
two questions. There are two questions. One is very specific to an individual. Could Reverend Moore refer this woman to one of our legal agencies? Could someone volunteer themselves for her to reach out to specifically around that circumstance, and particularly have a connection for that woman to be able to ask questions? If you can, I think I'm not sure which would be the most, but we have some great folks on the line that can help out. Sal?
I mean, we're always happy to speak with people, but from what I can understand from that text or that chat message, it's that there's a U.S. citizen who's Black who's being harassed by DHS, ICE enforcement officers. That's probably a civil liberties question. So I would probably point them towards the NYCLU, but they are welcome to reach out to us, or Legal Services of Central New York does some civil liberties work as well, would be potentially a good option. But I do agree that it just depends on the specific circumstances in which this is happening that I've sort of seen there. Yeah, Drea says NYCLU here. So it sounds like probably an NYCLU referral.
Drea, did you want to speak just really quickly, and we can make sure that you guys get connected? Okay.
I'll actually just drop my email in the chat.
Okay.
And we can connect. Reverend Moore, if you want to connect with me. It sounds like a racial profiling situation, and so yeah, I'll just follow up on that, and we have a few follow-up questions that we typically ask in situations like this. So thanks so much. And if anyone else experiences any situation where you feel like your rights have been violated or around racial profiling, I'll also drop our intake hotline as well.
And also, Jane Hugo has a more general question. Undocumented has failed to file appropriate applications. Is it better for the individual to leave the country rather than be picked up with ICE?
Those individuals should always speak with an attorney to get legal advice, because what we find is that often immigrants don't know what they're eligible for, because the immigration laws is extraordinarily complex. So, we have like a 10-page document that we use to screen for a wide variety of legal issues. Sometimes people are eligible for an adjustment of status or temporary protected status, or maybe they have a family member who could sponsor them under, various laws. So we say to people, always talk to a lawyer first. It's actually very similar to the advice I give to folks facing an eviction. You don't have to self-evict, talk to a lawyer first. You might have really good defenses. So, Sarah, anything you would add to that?
No, I think it's important to just have your case fully assessed and screened, because each situation is so nuanced and different.
Okay. Jessica?
I just wanted to chime in on the racial profiling issue, because this is something we're really concerned about, that when we go through these periods where there are restrictions and more aggressive tactics against immigrants, there is sometimes an attitude that you can tell who is an immigrant by the language they're speaking, or the way that they look, or the color of their skin. And if there are stories of that happening, we would very much like to document that. I don't think that's the kind of community that we want to be in, where we are making assumptions on who belongs here or who is from here by the way that they look or the way that they sound.
Thank you, Jessica. It is 7:23. I have to tell you, I love this community. Today is just one more reason why. I think we started about 10 minutes to 6 with almost 180 people, and there's still 157 people on this call, because we care about our neighbors, we care about one another. We want to make sure that we are the most informed to be able to help one another and provide the correct guidance. And I love the advice. We got as high as 201. Awesome. And still have 157 people on this call. And so I think it is the best advice that I heard is get informed information. Do not rely on social media. Do not go to YouTube and think that you're going to get the accurate information. We are going to correlate all of this information into one area. We're going to post it on our website. We're going to make sure that this recording is posted there as well. So at your leisure, you can go back and hear who was that said that particular thing, and you can go back and take a look. Syracuse, Central New York, you are amazing. This is why we're a welcoming community. This right here. This is the reason why. And so again, tonight's briefing is going to be on our city website. You'll be able to access it, and Ruthie, you're quick with that keyboard, SEER.gov/immigration-briefing. Thank you. And I appreciate everyone on this call. Let's take care of one another. Let's look out for one another. Let's care for one another. And let's continue to be informed for one another. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And Sarah Paulo's just got a last comment here about making sure we stay informed. I think it's right in front of us. Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, I think Deputy Mayor covered it, and we've been, a lot of those questions came up in the chat, like, will we be able to see this recording? Will we be having access to the slides and the links that everyone's been sharing? And the answer is yes. We're going to have the recorded event up on the website tomorrow, and then the links and all the resources, we're going to try and compile that in a way that's clear and helpful, and putting it up on our website coming soon at syr.gov/immigration. So we realize not everybody has access to the internet as well, and so we do plan on distributing materials so that information can get spread throughout the entire community, and we will be sharing those with our community partners as well.
Thank you, everyone. So absolutely fantastic discussion. We will, I'm sure, continue the discussion as we find ways to make sure that we're going to keep everybody informed. Enjoy your evening, and we'll all be in touch soon, I'm sure. Take care.